Hello, it's me. And some of you are wondering how in the world am I going to fit 50 of these shapes onto my onto an 8.5 by 11. So here I have an 8.5 by 11, and one important thing that I would like to do is show you how to build a grid or a template to know how those 50 shapes are going to fit onto your 8.5 by 11. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. You guys can't see this off screen, and then I'm just going to drag some guides out here. I want to mark where my guides are, and we're going to give ourselves about a ½ inch around all of the outside edge. So I would say let's pull some guides that are going to be ½ inch in, and I always put my guides onto another layer so that I can lock them, so that if we are making some selections, we won't select those guides, because sometimes those guides can do some funny things inside Photoshop. The next or inside Illustrator. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and drag a rectangle to fill that live area, basically that area that we want our 50 shapes to sit in. And we're just giving that ½ inch around the outside just to give us a little bit of air around it so that it's not so it doesn't go all the way out to the edge. And now what we're going to do is we're going to let Illustrator break this square or this rectangle into a grid or into individual shapes. And how we're going to do that is we're going to go up under Object. We'll go to Path. And then we're going to pull down to Split into Grid. And that's going to bring up this dialog box, and you'll see that we can split this into rows and columns now. And I'm going to go ahead and split mine into 10 rows. And if we hit preview, we'll kind of see how it's going to split up. And we need 50 little spots, so we're going to, and then so if we got 50 rows, we're going to need 5 columns. So that should equal 50 squares. And that's fine. That kind of gives us an idea of how those are going to fit in, but we also want some air or some space in between each of these squares. So if we come down here to our gutter, we can start adding some space between our shapes until we get it just, kind of the way we want it. We're trying to get it into like a 1-inch square, but it may not be exactly square. This is just going to be kind of an area that you're going to want to drag your shapes into. I think I'm going to want a little bit more gutter on that, in that center. So we got 0.2 and 0.3. Alright. And then if you want to, we can say Add Guides. So if you click on this Add Guides, you'll see that we're going to have guides popping out here to show. I think that should work. Let's go ahead and turn that off. I think that's going to be complicated. We're just going to show this grid. We'll say OK. And now you have this grid, and we could make it any color. Let's just make it a real light gray so that so it's not too confusing. And now that we have that, we can just take our shape over here and drag it into that area and then scale it down so that it kind of fits in that square. Okay, and then before you print, all you have to do is take that and turn it off. And there we have our grid, and we have our shape right where we need it. Okay. Now the other thing I want to make sure that you're not doing is I want to make sure that you're not there's no white inside these shapes when we go to create them. So you need to go ahead and make sure that you apply a function on them so that they're either cut or united or something from your let's see. So now I want to leave that. Some of you are going to maybe try to cheat and say, well, I'm just going to put a white circle on a white circle. That looks like that's cut, right? And then I'll just select both of those, and I'm going to move it over here, and then I'll scale it down. And this is what I don't want. I don't want you to try to use white to show me, or it looks like it's cut, and then it's not. So remember, in your project guidelines, if I see white in your shape, it's going to mean that you haven't really cut this out. You've just put that over trying to trick me. And over the years, I've become very, very smart to this trickery that students try to play. So just remember, make sure that you cut these shapes, and once you bring them over, sometimes I'll say put a red square, or put, we could change these squares into red if we wanted to. And then that will really show you where you're making mistakes. So if you drag these over and you see that white, you're going to have to kind of redesign or rethink the way you're drawing your shapes. All right. So this is a real good way for organizing. You can do alignment features if you don't want to work with this grid, but I have found that this is kind of a nice, easy way to get all 50 shapes aligned and spread out and evenly dispersed over your sheet. Now, if you think that that you like more space around the outside than a ½ inch, then try that. Try to pull your guides and make maybe a smaller rectangle, and then try to fill that with 50 shapes. All right. So that's it. I hope it helps you on your project, and I'm anxious to kind of see where everybody is on their 15 shapes, and certainly on all 50 shapes. So I will see you next week.